Remember thinking, what's like the biggest dream I could ever have? I cut out magazine letters that spelled out London Marathon and I would just stare at it. Oh, that's a lot to take on. 20% of your plan is just never going to go according to plan. A lot of negativity gets thrown at runners in normal everyday life. Well, imagine that picture you're going to post with your big wall of medals. Like people are going to be like, damn.
Hi, Kristin. Welcome to the
Hi.
show.
So nice to be here.
It's so nice to meet you face to face.
I know. I watched you for such a long time. It's nice to see you in person.
When I see you pop on Instagram on your live streams, well, I guess technically on Instagram they're called lives. When you're on Instagram, I'm always like trying to catch you.
It's
Like,
so
oh, she's
cute.
on Instagram.
I know
Yeah,
it's funny. I try to like find a quiet corner in my house and it ends up just being my pantry. So then sometimes the lives go from us talking about running to people being like, "Oh, what do you have behind you?" And so I'll like, "Oh, here's my new liquid IV that I have."
so I am very excited to have you come to the channel on the podcast. This is going to go up on the podcast as well to talk primarily about Run Disney because when I have questions, I always go through your posts and I try to find the answers to the questions that I have when it comes to Run Disney because you're so knowledgeable.
Oh, thank you. That's
And I know that a lot of people, when they ask me, who should I go to get these answers? I always send them to your page. So
Oh, I feel very honored for that because especially when I was new to Run Disney, it felt so overwhelming and I wanted to learn as much as possible. So it's really nice to now be able to answer people's questions. It feels good to give back to other new runners.
let's backtrack a little bit. And for people who've been under a rock and they don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Kristin. I've been a personal trainer now for about 13 years and a run coach as well. And due to the pandemic, I was able to shift mostly everything online. So now I do a lot of my run coaching and strength training through online programs, which is awesome because now I've gotten to meet so many people around the country and even Australia and Canada too. So it's been really cool.
And I know that you do have different certifications because a lot of people, when they are online, not that in person, it could be different. But I think with the advent of online programs, a lot of people might not be legit, but you do have a lot of certifications.
Yes. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
studied nutrition in college because I was always obsessed with nutrition. I think it's so fascinating. And then, yes, I am NASM certified as well as corrective exercise specialist, bar, running certification. And then I'm working on another running certification, mostly because I feel like if I don't keep trying to learn something, my brain will just forget everything I've learned. So I'm always looking for something else to learn.
Also, I feel like a lot of the science also changes. Like they do new studies and then things that we might have been doing for a long time, then the recommendations change. So it's good to
Oh,
have.
absolutely. Yeah, especially like when I first started personal training, it was in like the Biggest Loser era. And so it was a lot of burpees and mountain climbers and like burning as many calories as possible. And now I've really learned the science behind just really heavy strength and taking those rest periods. And so it's just really interesting how that's evolved too.
So how did you get into running?
Oh man, you know what? When I was just telling the story to my friend the other day, when I was my heaviest and I worked for the state in the nutrition department, I was just so out of shape and I ate horribly and I never moved my body. And I remember thinking, what's like the biggest dream I could ever have? And in my brain, it was the London Marathon. And so I cut out magazine letters that spelled out London Marathon and I put it on my computer at work and I would just stare at it. And I just always thought there was something so fascinating about running, like the gels and the electrolytes and everything about it seemed like so simple, but so interesting and complicated all at the same time. So then I signed up for my first half marathon and I didn't train and I I did it anyway, which was such a huge mistake.
Man, that's daunting. 13.1 miles.
Oh, the funniest thing though, I thought so my friend and I the night before we were like, well, I guess we're just going to run this thing and like we'll see what happens. So we get to mile 13 and I'm almost in tears and I'm like, where is the finish line? I had no idea it was 13.1. And I remember these girls behind us, they must have been training for CIM because they were like, okay, so should we just keep going another 8 miles to finish for today? And I was like, I'm gonna murder
Oh
them.
my God.
Yeah. So that point one
That's
was a
so,
lot.
when did you discover Run Disney? Because I know you're
Oh,
huge. I am too. Run Disney
yes.
fan. Was it like
Um,
short after you ran that race, or did it take you a while?
yes, I think my first half was in 2010, and then I ran the 2013 Tinkerbell. I think that was my only my third half or so. And my friend had told me, "Oh, did you know like Disneyland does races?" And I signed up in August for Tinkerbell, which was in January. So like it wasn't even sold out at the time, which is crazy. Yeah, so that was my first one before they even had 10Ks at Run Disney. And I was hooked. I had no idea what I was in for. It was great.
I so yeah, from my perspective, it's hard not to get hooked into Run Disney. They're
Yes.
very expensive, but they're so much fun. It's like a whole different concept.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
so much fun and you meet so many wonderful people. I've never met an unkind person at Run Disney. So it's such a wonderful community. I love it.
There's something different about people who run Disney. And it's interesting because a lot of the same people who run quote unquote regular races also run Disney. But it's like we all change
Yes.
our, I don't know, we've all become a little bit goofier, and
Uh-huh.
must be the costumes, and the characters. And yeah, yeah, we're like
Yeah,
this. Yeah, it's going into like a different dimension in a
right.
way.
And it's so funny too, because like at Fleet Feet or something, when I'm getting new shoes and they'll ask me what I'm training for, and I'll say, like, oh, the Disney World Marathon. I feel like there's an attitude of like, oh, well, it must not be that difficult if it's like at Disney, but I'm like, well, it is still a marathon or it is still
Right.
48.6. So it's still really tough. But for some reason, like you said, like the atmosphere, the distraction makes it so worth it.
So let's talk a little bit about like Run Disney and training
Okay.
for Run Disney, because obviously you have made a business out of training people who run Disney. And I know that you do really well. I have friends who train with you. I ran actually the Disney Marathon in 2023 with one of my best friends. I ran it the last year, 2022 as well. And she had a 25-minute PR. And I think
That's
it was all because
wild.
she was training. Yeah, yeah, it was wild. Also, you're very peppy today. Like she had that pep in her step. She was, and she did Dopey. So the marathon came after
Yeah.
the 5K, the 10K, and the half. And she was so like in such great shape. So
That's
she said,
awesome.
it's RunFitMama. It's all because of her. So I do think your training plans have found like that sweet spot for people.
So I think that, first of all, I think a lot of runners are being told in other areas of their life that they either can't do it or they're not a real runner or they just don't, oh, that's a lot to take on. And so I feel like first we have to start with like the confidence part. And so I really have to like reiterate that anyone can run, and whatever mileage that might be for you, being fast is all relative. And, just accomplishing something, finishing something is no one's going to look at your medal rack and be like, what time did you do that one in, And so we really have to start there. And I think too, another really big hurdle that we really talk about is getting over the mental block of fueling. And a lot of women feel like they shouldn't fuel because they always need to be kind of in a diet mentality. Like as women, we need to be small. And so hopefully that pep in your friend's step was also from this too. Like proper fueling not only makes you feel better on the run and makes you mentally more equipped to handle the mileage too. So we talked a lot about that and about with Dopey, you're not just fueling for marathon, you're fueling for 48 miles. And so starting that fueling even on the 5K day, I was telling a lot of my clients, take a gel in the corral, don't run the 5K fasted because you're already going to put yourself kind of back in a hole. So we talked a lot about that, even starting in September when the program started. We talked a lot about fueling and recovery, to be able to handle that mileage too, because I think fueling really is a mental thing as well. It really can help you mentally get through it. And so then we also talked about how important strength training was and how keeping your body strong in different planes of motion and a lot of core work and things like that, and really just cutting out stuff that they don't need to be doing. So, we weren't doing 15 sets of bicep curls. We were doing more like deadlifts and push-ups and stuff that's going to help them when they get really tired by like mile 20. Instead of hunching over, we're going to really help them keep upright. So that's kind of, we tried to do everything, with yoga and mobility as well. But then I also tried to tell them that 20% of your plan is just never going to go according to plan. So if you get sick, things like that, I would always be messaging them, it's okay. You missed a long run, but you're still going to make it. So I just tried to be really supportive of them because like I said, I think a lot of negativity gets thrown at runners in normal everyday life. And so I tried to really be supportive, just someone that could be there for them.
So for example, if I want to run Dopey, which is a
Yeah.
5K to 10K, the half and the full, how would that work?
Yeah. So in our RunFitFab Dopey plan, basically it's sort of like a teeter totter. So I write the skeleton because the most important thing is going to be the runs and the mileage. And I plan out all the stimulation weekends that we're going to have. But in September, we have a little bit more strength training than we're going to have late November, early December. So as the time goes on, the strength volume might get a little smaller. It's still there, but the running volume obviously has to go up for Dopey. So we do 2 to 3 days of strength training. And towards the more simulation weekends, we do, instead of that third day of strength, we do yoga and mobility and foam rolling, stuff to give you time. A lot of like shin splint rehab, calf strengthening, stuff like that. Because what's hard about Dopey too is the course, like the on-ramps can really mess people up. So we try to really keep the calves and the shins really strong. And then we plan out all of the runs. So we sort of loosely follow the Jeff Galloway schedule because I know some people really like to know in December, what am I going to be running? And so we do kind of sort of keep that schedule. We don't go quite as high as 26 miles, the full simulation. So we usually do our runs like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday if it's a simulation, but we try to fit it all in. And then I always tell people, like, if you have your strength training planned for, let's say, Monday, and you see a list of 7 items, and you really don't have the time that day, the top 2 things are always going to be the most important. So squats and chest press, let's say. And if you can get through those, great. And if if you can't get through the whole list, some strength is better than none. But the main thing is keeping your stress low. So if it's going to stress you out to have to pull out a full 60-minute strength, just do 20 minutes. And that's enough for today. I hope that answered your
Very
question.
cool. Yes, yes. So I wanted to talk about the simulations as well, because I know
Yes.
there are different schools of thought. In my career as a runner, I've done different kinds of training plans. So I've done everything from like running 24 miles to prepare for a marathon. When I trained with Hanson's, my longest run was 16 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, what's a simulation and why are they important?
So starting in September, before your Dopey or Goofy challenge, or really any of those challenges where you do back-to-back runs, we'll do runs on Saturday and Sunday. And it's really important that you really keep a true easy pace. And we do talk about that in our programs a lot. Like, what does people think that they're running easy, but they're not? And really the point of it is to train on sore and tired legs, because by day 4 of Dopey or day 2 of Goofy, you're tired and your feet, like, this is the thing that I want people to know, is your feet are going to hurt. Like the morning of the marathon, you're not going to feel fresh. You're going to be tired. So if you can practice that at home, everything from the gel you take at the beginning to the underwear you're wearing, and you can be prepared because you've done 6 simulation weekends leading up to Dopey, you're going to be more confident on race day because you're like, I've practiced this before. So for example, I think the longest simulation is around Thanksgiving, where you're going to do a 5K, a 10K, a 10 miler, and let's say a 20 miler. And that's really going to be your best practice for the weekend. And yes, it's hard physically, but honestly, it's mentally very, very hard. So I really like to push clients, let's say, to 20 miles, because for me personally, mile 18 is the worst. And the more practice I can get getting to mile 18 and pushing past it and knowing like, oh, okay, like this is getting better, then because my first Dopey, I had a complete freak out during the marathon. And I really had to tell myself, you better get it together. Or you're not going to finish, like, because I was just mentally really struggling at 18. And so now when that happens, even on a long run, I'm like, I know what that is. I know I'm just in a bad mood. I need to get over it. So we do those weekends to really practice that. And it's also a really great time to practice your race day outfit too, to see if anything like chafes or rubs you
Right.
the wrong way.
It's really interesting. The underwear is I've had races where I forgot to actually put my lucky underwear. It's like, why did I do this to myself? Because then you're miserable. Like
Yes.
when you start, obviously you sweat and things, yeah, get
Yeah. Things move.
yeah.
Well, even
Yeah.
like the thickness of your socks, like if you change brands of socks on race day and maybe they're thicker and you might get so just knowing what works best for you gives you all that ammunition you need.
What is the question that you get the most
Oh
when
my
people
gosh.
are? Because I know when you get closer to Dopey, you on Instagram you go through these like ask me anything.
Yeah.
What's like the most asked question?
I think now it's more fueling stuff. Like, how often should I fuel is the biggest question. In the beginning, it was more like balloon ladies anxiety. Um, and so just telling people like you'll be okay, trust your training. That's the biggest thing you can do is just know you can do it. But now it's more fueling because I think people were fueling once an hour. And so really trying to explain to them the science of like carbohydrates and how fast your body burns through them has been really helpful for a lot of people. So that's my biggest. Or like, what flavor goo do you like right now?
I've seen that you like goo. I am a goo person too. Like I've tried other gels and I always go back to goo. My stomach likes them.
What I
Why?
like about goo, I like the thickness. So like it takes me a half mile to get through it because I'll just kind of like sip on it. And it's like something to do, which sounds weird, but it takes me out of the draining, like back and forth.
And I do that too. Like at earlier in any race, I tend to just jug it in, but then later in the race, you're right. It's just you tear it apart, and then you're just sucking on it, and it gives you that. I don't know. It gives you it gives you distraction when you're getting
Yes.
tired. And I think the sugar on your, I don't know, it gives you that kick too. Is there a technique to doing this? Because obviously, when you're doing a full challenge, like back to back races, is there anything that you should never do at the beginning that could totally mess you up towards the end?
I think not. I think going off of the way you practiced is a mistake. So let's say you're really full from Via Napoli the night before or something like that. And let's say you're going to go run your half marathon and then getting through the first hour, hour and a half, thinking like I'm too full to fuel. I think just taking some chews or just something in your gut for the next day is really helpful. Um, and I've learned that from personal experience of not fueling my half and then getting to the full, and you're kind of already in the hole. So I think just going off of your practice is maybe a mistake. And that's kind of why we talked a lot about like our game plan when we were there is that in your gear check bag, you're going to add in a protein shake. So that way, when you're walking through to go back to the bus, you're going to eat your banana, have a protein shake, start your recovery right away. So if you get thrown off, at least you're already trying to recover well enough for the next day. I mean, other than like sleeping through your alarm, which knock on wood has like never happened. Um, forgetting your fuel plan, I think is major.
And what about leading to going to Disney? Is there anything that week before that you should be doing?
Yeah.
The hay's in the barn right there, but I'm sure there's
Yeah.
something that you could be doing to kind of set you up for success that week.
Yeah, I really think getting enough sleep because you're never going to get enough sleep there. That's the thing. Like, yes, of course, obviously go to sleep every night when you're at Disney, but you're not going to get good sleep. You're going to be really nervous. So taking the like 7 to 10 days leading up to it, really get a lot of good sleep, get a lot of good protein, and just don't forget your little mobility routine. Like and that's the thing too, is as you taper, your body's like, oh, your hip flexors hurt, your shins hurt. That's just your brain. Like, I remember my last run before Dopey this year, it was like a 4 miler and I was just easy pace and my hip flexors were like screaming, which hasn't happened to me in such a long time. And I texted my friend, she's like, that's your taper talking. I was like, okay, yes, that's right. That's right. So I think the best thing you can do is take care of yourself, lots of vitamin C and lots of good sleep. And then I always tell people, like, lay down in a quiet room, put on your biggest hype song, lose yourself or something, and close your eyes and imagine the post you're going to post on Instagram of you with your medal. Like, imagine you being at the finish line, because I think all that positivity leading up to it will only help you in the end, because you're going to be nervous. Everyone's nervous.
You just gave me the chills thinking about the post Instagram. Yeah. Look, we get bragging rights.
Oh, 100%.
I never, I ran New York City Marathon. I think that would have given me, because we were texting each other about New York City
Yes.
Marathon before this. But when I ran 2021 New York City Marathon, I hit the wall a mile early on. It was like 17. I got in such a bad headspace. And my husband, my son, I had friends and my husband's family, on the course. So they were following me, and the New York City Marathon has an app, and they see the dot and you see on the map. So it's really cool because they see you in real time. So I guess they kind of saw me like slowing down, and my husband texted me saying, think about the medal. And I was like, the medal, like I want to quit. I was in a really bad,
Yeah.
it was not fun. And then my husband said, just think about Annie. Annie's our dog. Think about petting Annie. And that gave me actually more. But I bet you, if I had thought, if my husband had said, think about the picture you're going to pose with the medal everywhere, that would have given me an because it's
Well,
not the medal. It's just, yes, it's the medal, but it's like that sense of accomplishment. I'd say I
yeah.
did.
And honestly, like, really just seeing people comment and being like, I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. Like, that really means everything. And I think too, I would tell my clients, like, imagine that, because they had all these people in their lives being like, oh, I don't know if you can do that. That's a lot. It's a lot of miles. I'm like, well, imagine that picture you're going to post with your with your big wall of medals. Like, people are going to be like, damn.
So I'm really looking forward to
Oh,
the.
yeah.
It's gonna
That's
be so.
awesome. I think they're going to look good this year. I liked all the art for this
Oh,
weekend.
it's super. I love the art because I
Me
was
too.
not a fan of last year's. So what are you looking forward to for these Dopey personally?
Oh, well, I'm looking for, so a bunch of us are doing Dopey and then we're doing Disneyland. So I'm kind of looking for this Dopey, as crazy that is to sound, to be like relaxing. So we've made jokes that we're just gonna eat licorice and watch Golden Girls in our room the whole time. um, so I'm excited to just sort of party pace our way through it and just kind of have fun. And we really want to go make some nice dinner reservations. So just kind of taking it easy. And now that Happily Ever After is back, after the marathon, anyone that wants to join, we want to eat ice cream and watch the fireworks. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
We might join. So
Yeah.
for me, this is my 50th birthday celebration. So I want to do something extra. So
Yeah, for sure. That sounds awesome.
yeah, I'm super excited.
Well, it's a
So
great way to celebrate. Like, what other race, except for, I guess, New York, where you're in a wonderful city, but, you're done running and then you can go watch fireworks at a castle. It's pretty awesome.
it's pretty awesome. And you have fireworks at the start too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the entertainment. And I mean, it's they're expensive races, but I always tell people don't get into debt to sign up for one. But if you can
Right.
afford it, yeah,
Right.
just set up a site every month, every paycheck or something, just set up a
Yes.
site. How can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram at RunFitMama. I also have my website, which is runfitmama.net. And I have a couple YouTube videos I'm going to try to be better at posting, but I'm on here also as RunFitMama.
So I was actually following you last year when when you were posting. Yeah.
I have such like admiration for all of you with your YouTube channel. I mean, I just feel like I don't know how you do it. It's such a commitment, but I love watching your videos. I think they're so comforting to watch other people running and training. And so I love it. I love it.
So hopefully we get to meet in person. I'll message
Yes, I
you
would love
if you
that.
do meetups. Yeah, that would be
Yes.
nice. I'll put all your links. People follow her on Instagram and YouTube and everywhere. Thank you so much for
Thank
for
you.
taking this interview, Kristin.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you.